Hi there, and welcome to the second season of the podcast, which accompany Mike Dunlop's new book, The Art of the Turnaround. Now, you'll remember in the first three podcasts, we focused on three key mentors who have helped shape Mike's business life. The first one was, of course, Dr. Martin Cundy, Mike's school teacher here in the UK. The second was a brilliant computing entrepreneur, Charlie Ross. And then when Mike came over to Seattle in the States, we met the third of his three key mentors, a very respected banker in Seattle, Dave Friedenberg. Today, I think, Mike, we'll draw on your experience of those key mentors, as clearly it's a critical part around your turning around failed companies. The one thing that struck me is that of these 8 podcasts in season 2, half of them, 4 podcasts, are all about mentoring and mentorship. Why is that such a big deal for you?
I think it's because the mentorship that I received and the encouragement I received has created a sort of ongoing obligation to be a mentor. And I think that's part of the magic chain of mentorship is there is no ability for me to in any way give back to the people who mentored me. So it creates this real obligation to help other people. And I know that sounds awfully sanctimonious, but it is. It's a real desire to balance the equation. When you,
Why do you feel obliged? Why do you feel obliged to pass it on?
I have no idea. It just feels like something that is the right thing to do. And I don't know why people feel that they should follow the right thing to do, but it was so pivotal in my life. And all 3 of them changed my life to such a degree that it did feel like there was an empty spot. Why had I been given these opportunities that other people hadn't? And I think that's the sort of balancing act that keeps the mentorship process almost working in perpetuity.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like passing on a baton. I think it's probably pertinent just to remind ourselves, to go back to basics, to remind ourselves of the definition of a mentor. And I looked it up. It says the definition is someone who shares knowledge, skills, and experience with another person to help them progress. Did those 3 gentlemen see themselves as mentors to you?
It didn't feel like it at the time, but looking back on it, yes, they certainly shared. And one of the things they all shared was this supreme level of confidence that they had in their vision, in what they were doing. There was not even a scintilla of doubt that they were not really brilliant at what they were doing. And I think that confidence was contagious. I think that's another part of the mentorship. If you spend time with someone who is that confident, then it rubs off. This is who I want to be like. This is how they act. And so I think it was a culmination of a lot of different things. But I remember having immense respect and also immense enjoyment of working with these people. These were not ordinary people. These were people of exceptional capability. And I think that part was contagious.
So they need that confidence to act as enablers. If they don't have that confidence, they don't become enablers? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think they become mentors. I mean, who wants to be mentored by someone who's not confident? I mean, part of being a mentor is having this confidence and having the ability to attract people to be mentored. I mean, it's a two-way street. It's not only the active mentoring, but it's also the person who is receptive to being mentored.
That's an interesting point. We'll touch on that later, how receptive they are, because I'm sure some people who you mentor probably are not that receptive. But let's park that one for now. I'd love to know how much of this is about timing, the alignment of the stars. Those 3 guys came into your life at a certain time in your life. How critical is the timing?
I've questioned that many, many times because I appeared to have taken a path less traveled. And right sitting on that path were one of these enablers for me to create a vision for myself and to implement it. And I think they are more likely to be on the path less traveled. I think they're on the lookout for maybe similar people to themselves in terms of ambition, maybe intellect. And I'm not quite sure who picks who, to be quite
What
honest.
do you mean by what do you mean by the path less traveled? Because your schoolmaster, Dr. Martin Cundy, he wasn't on the path less traveled, was he?
No, I was on the path less traveled
I see the
because
mentee.
of my appalling academics and the inability to fit into a very strict private school, boarding school in England. And so I was on the path less traveled. And had I been the perfect student and sat and did all my coursework and did everything correctly, I don't think I would have met him until I got into the senior year. But because I was different, he saw that and cultivated it. So I think you have to be a little outside the normal path. And I think there are a lot more mentors on the path less traveled than on the normal path.
I can see that in traditional mentoring, but what about in business? Do you have to be on the path less traveled in business?
I think so because you meet a whole bunch of different people. If you're working for a company, it's so stratified, and your reporting structure and who you work with is kind of dictated by someone else. I mean, you're not allowed to be completely freelance in a company and say, I think the president of the bank would be a very good mentor to me. So I will go up to his office and ask to have a meeting with him so he can be my mentor. It doesn't quite work that way.
Who chooses who?
I think that's a very, very difficult question. I think you have to be in the right place. I think you can be in the right place by not being in a traditional place and having not taken the traditional path. Maybe there are lots of mentors sitting on the traditional path, but I was lucky enough not to be on the traditional path. So maybe I got untraditional mentors on that path. Who knows? You can't go back and replay the other story. You have to accept that the path that you chose was interesting. And all I can say is, both in timing and quality, the mentors that I ran into were very receptive, very supportive, unbelievably kind and considerate. And in their own way, with Dave Friedenberg, it was in the most taciturn way that you could possibly imagine. But deep underneath, there was this wonderful support. And so, yes, it's very good questions, Alex. I wish I had perfect answers for it, but it is a mystery. It's an enigma. And
Is it personalized? Do you know what I mean by that?
yes, in a way, but it wasn't the sort of close, comforting relationship that you normally look at for mentoring. So maybe
Yeah.
I'm expanding the definition of mentoring a little bit from the traditional, but it's a very unique mosaic of personality, capability, confidence. I could add another 30 words that would describe the mentors that I was lucky enough to have.
It's interesting actually. I think I was boxing myself in on previous podcasts because I kept on thinking as mentorship as cuddly, but it really, most of mentoring is not cuddly. It can be pretty brutal. And I think a lot of the time it needs to be pretty brutal, especially in a business environment.
I think so, but also that I think they're looking for hooks and they're looking for what you do and how can I assist. I don't think they
Are
want
they
to.
looking for a challenge? Are they looking for a challenge? Certainly, I'm sure you were.
No, it wasn't quite that way. It was more that I think the more that we got to know each other, the more confidence they had in me, the more fun it was for them to give me tasks to take me on a different path. I think they enjoyed it vicariously. I mean, here is someone that is not traditional, that doesn't meet any of the standards that they've had before, And suddenly, this person starts to prosper, starts to expand their capabilities. And then I think there's an add on process that they look at that and say, this is stunning. This is really fun helping this person achieve items that or achieve the future that they've never thought possible.
Yes, I think I malign you there. When I say you're a challenge, I was thinking of you just as a schoolboy, that sort of mentoring with the sort of pedagogic mentoring from someone who's much older. In business, far less so. To be a good mentor, do you need that big age gap so that you can draw on the experience and pass it on to your mentee, as Dr. Martin Cundy did with you? Is that age gap important?
I think it needs to be big enough so you don't sort of collide. But I think it has to be a gap that there is respect for a differential of experience that you're willing to absorb. Not that you agree with everything your mentor says, but there is enough of a respect and an age gap that you can absorb the difference of their experience versus your own.
Okay, I just want to tee up a thought. Your mentors were catalysts. They didn't really see themselves as mentors. Am I right in thinking that?
To be honest, I never questioned them on it. I have no idea kind of really what they thought. I did see that they gained enormous enjoyment out of accelerating what I was doing. And sort of, but they also saw talents in me that I did not see in myself. So I think that's a sort of subliminal that they saw these talents and they thought it may be kind of fun to see where those talents would go.
Okay, so I think here's the difference. They may not have seen themselves consciously as mentors. They were just doing what they do. I think the difference is, and tell me if I'm off beam here, but you seem to be a conscious catalyst. You are actively seeking out to mentor. That's the difference.
Yes, and that you're 100% correct. That is the sort of obligation side that I have because of what they did for me that was completely altruistic. I know that there was some immense enjoyment they got out of it because it was obvious if you give people more and more, it must be that you're gaining something from it. But looking back on my life, and particularly after some fairly significant success, I went back and I tried to connect up all the dots. Why did it happen to me? What were the pieces, and how could I utilize that to help other people and to help people who looked at me as a genuine mentor?
Right. Perfect time to turn towards you as a mentor. Let's just outline this. You do two types of mentoring. You mentor in a business environment where there are companies that are failing. You also mentor in a pastoral environment with young, challenged teenagers. Just give us a sketch of that pastoral side, just so that we've got that background to work with.
Well, there really is a third side, and that is the group that comes in with their beautifully put together business plan that
Uh-huh.
need my affirmation on why they're going to be successful. And kind of like in the ancient mariners, they leave a sadder but a wiser man.
So that third class, I hadn't seen that one coming, but they're the ones who don't think they need mentoring. They just want affirmation of their.
Yes, they're about to step into the abyss, and any handholding at that stage, any convincing that everything they put in their business plan was going to happen, they just need that final assist. They've got their parachute ready. They're at the edge of the plane. There's a natural hesitation, and they're looking for someone to give them a nudge.
Oh, I see. Not for someone saying, no, no, step back. This is too dangerous.
No, they're looking for affirmation that all the work they put into this brilliant plan and idea was just so stunning that once I'd given it my sort of papal blessing, they were on their way.
We'll come back to business. I am curious to know about your traditional mentoring. Tell me about these challenged children that you mentor in a semi-school setting. Oh, well, it is a school setting, isn't it?
Yeah, this was is an interesting school that I work with. All these students have come back to high school, and after serious issues related to families and drugs and every type of sort of dysfunctionality you could find. And the school has attracted them back to get them to complete their high school and maybe potentially go on to college. And they're a very interesting, eclectic group between the ages of 14 and 17, 18. And I initially started talking to them about, all the wonderful opportunities that were out there and how exciting it was, that all the potential. And it went down like a lead balloon. They could see no connection between where they were and what I was talking about. I might as well have been talking about Shangri-La, and all they could see was their dreadful challenges they had on a daily basis. And who is this lunatic coming in telling him when it was pouring with rain that actually the sun is shining? So it didn't get off to a good start at all. I thought this was my absolutely golden opportunity to, in one session, take these poor kids and have them just walking on clouds when I left. And then I suddenly put myself, well, I didn't suddenly, I reviewing it, I put myself in their position. And if I'd been in their position and someone like me came in, I think I'm not related to that person in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, they've been born with a silver spoon, and their life has been wonderful, and they've now got everything that they could possibly want. How does that connect to me? And so I had a lot of soul searching, and I'm not comfortable about talking in front of a group about the atrocious upbringing I had and the pain and the angst and the humiliation and the stammering and all the things that made me an absolute outcast when I was younger. And so I decided to go back. I think it was the third time. And I said, let me tell you a little bit about my childhood. And the more I described my childhood, the wider the eyes went and the closer they moved towards the chair that I was sitting on, the stool that I was sitting on. And they got really quite close, and their eyes were wide open. And so I realized that I'm a little bit flippant in terms of my success, and just follow the bouncing ball, follow the 10 steps, and you'll be wonderfully successful. But there has to be a connection. And there has to be a feeling that what you're telling them has not been sort of handed to you, that there is a grit, a determination, a fight that you have to go through to get there. It's not easy. This is a gladiator sport, surviving as those kids.
So earlier you said you need to exude real confidence so that those following you as mentees can, take on that confidence. Here you are doing exactly the opposite. You're exposing real vulnerabilities, anything but confidence.
Yes, that turned into confidence. So I always use the samurai sword. It's put back in the fire 250 times, and it's heated up and hammered and hardened and put back into the fire again and again. And so when I explained all the hurdles, they understood that even their worst scenarios that they had, if they learned to run towards the fire and put it out, or metaphorically put the sword back in the fire to have it hardened, that they could actually have the wherewithal to make a very successful life, whatever it was. It doesn't have to be financially, it doesn't have to be in any way, but they, looking back on their life, could look at the starting point and look at the ending point and be satisfied that they had a good life.
How receptive are they to that?
Starting to be very, very receptive. They're starting to ask some very penetrating questions. There was an interesting scenario where they have a drug test before they start school, the ones who had a drug problem. And so the line was forming just before I was coming in to give a talk. And I stood in line. And they said, "What are you standing in line?" I said, "Well, I think I should be drug tested too." And they all laughed and they said, "Well, would you do a drug test?" I said, "Absolutely." So I think you have to sort of break down the barriers. You have to make yourself vulnerable, even though you can be vulnerable and confident. But I just completely missed that connection with what I hoped would be a wonderful mentoring experience. And it didn't turn out so well. So obviously, I don't know everything.
When you mentor young people, it just takes me back to Dr. Martin Cundy that younger people, are they easier to mentor than business people because they are at that age where they can still be molded?
No, I think they're very similar. I think
Really?
yes, I think they're very similar. I don't think they're significantly different. I mean, over the years, I've been sensitive. I've become sensitive enough to see what is working and what is not working and modify the mentorship. I can span the younger people. I can span people who are starting out in business. I can span people who are in business that have had a problem that can help rectify that problem. So I'm more of the Japanese call it a sensei, that I can look at problems and help and assist. And it really doesn't matter what the problem is, and it doesn't matter what level it is. I think I've seen enough ways that I can help that make me fairly a broad spectrum mentor.
Let's turn back to the business community because essentially this is the thread of these podcasts. Are those in failing companies? At some point, you have to mentor them. I'm sure at the start of a turnaround, you have to lead them. That then leads to mentoring. I might have preempted my own question, but you say they're not harder to mentor. Is that right?
No, it's just a different type of mentoring. You have
Aren't they?
to.
Aren't they more constrained, less open to
Oh,
ideas?
absolutely, yes. They've seen what doesn't work, and or they've been convinced that there is no future in many cases. So you've got to unravel that part and create a vision for the company, and then work with them and advise them and encourage them and share in the successes in the early days and create a different type of momentum. And so that's it's a little different mentoring. It's more encouragement, support, but there definitely is a mentoring part in it.
You've turned around many companies. Can you give us an example of how you've mentored those in a company to help that company turn around? Can you think of a specific example?
That's kind of a hard question because there'd be an awful lot, but it really is determining who the leader is going to be. So, one company, actually not that long ago, there was one I did sort of in the middle of doing it permanently as a job and the current time. But I was brought into a company and I could see the principals had no leadership. They were locked up in their office producing better and better Excel spreadsheets for the future, which is that were not achievable, but it made them feel better to put a spreadsheet together to show that everything was going to be all right. And I remember at the first meeting, there was one person who stood out. It may be where they sat in the room, how they sat in the room, how they responded to questions. And they had no experience of leading a company, but they had every ingredient that had the capability. So that was a person I took aside and said, I'm going to teach you and mentor you and explain to you that the natural attributes that you have can be vital to the success of turning around this company. And the
And this is
person
someone
was
who's not
utterly
in a
shocked.
this is someone who's not in a leadership role, yeah?
No, no, in
Yeah.
a sort of minor administrative role. I can spot these hidden gems, and they have a battlefield promotion right there and then at that particular point. And because I spot that they have the capability, and it's you're frequently just looking for, you don't have time to hire someone, so you're looking at who is the best and most capable person that is has the innate capabilities that you can encourage and mentor and turn them into a leader pretty much on the battlefield.
How does that affect the wider company dynamic? Do other people look at that mentee and think, "Oh, okay," or do you then move on to other people? How does it affect that wider dynamic within the
What I
company?
found in the past is there is a gravitation towards them
Uh-huh.
because they display characteristics that people are comfortable with. And when they take the leadership position, they people sort of acquiesce. It's stunning watching it. It's if the right person is there that has these right characteristics, then you can put in incredibly valuable mentorship and advice because they've never experienced that position. You can tell them all the things that are going to happen, who to trust, who not to trust, all the characteristics that display both positive and negative. And they're stunned. Suddenly the curtains are drawn back. They never thought they'd be in this position. And now they look out and everybody's looking at them to lead.
There's the I'm always told there's no such thing as a stupid question, but this might be stupid, but who cares? Is there a formula for mentoring when it comes to turning around companies? Is there a formula that you can reach out and pull bits out of it that always work?
No, it's a real time response, and
Yeah.
it's observation of characteristics, observation of a number of things, and it's totally in real time. There's no plan, there's no plot, there's nothing other than looking at what the objective is. You've made your choice when you come. When I come into a company, who is going to be this leader? They can be at the top position, and you can rehabilitate them. They can be halfway down the ladder, or in one particular case, in the Belgium company that I bought, this was someone at the lowest administrative rungs that moved to the senior position in the company because they had all the capabilities to do the job, which I spotted very early on.
And when you turn around a company, there are so many factors that come into play, spreadsheets and so on. How big a piece of that pie is mentoring when it comes to turning around a company? Is that a really big
I think it is.
component?
I think the mentoring creates the momentum, the confidence, gives people a vision and that they can hook onto. And once they've got that, I've seen no holding back some of these people. Once they start the process, they absolutely surprise me. And I think in some ways, when I look back at the people who mentored me, I think I really surprised them. I think they spotted me for some reason. I don't know what that was, but a lot of the kids that I've mentored, a lot of the business people I've mentored, they've surprised me how quickly and how fiercely they take on their new assignment and how well they do it. I mean, nothing taught, nothing other than some mentoring, some encouragement, giving them a vision of what happens in certain situations, what to avoid, what to look out for, and they're sponges. They just absorb all this. No one's ever told them this before. It's a whole new chapter in their life, and it's very exciting.
I mean, that all sounds very rewarding. There must be bits which are hugely challenging. What are the really challenging aspects of it?
Is finding them. You have to look, and you have to, in the meetings that we describe in the book. That is the observation of people, and it's amazing how people stick their heads up over the parapet, how far away from you they sit, Do they bring a notebook? Do they want to take notes? Do they actually listen? Do they ask questions? Do they fidget? Do they display characteristics of where they sit? And I've always found that no one wants to sit next to you, but there is one seat away that normally these leaders sit. And I don't know why. They don't want to sit right next to you. They don't want to seem to be a toady, but they want to be close enough to show their capabilities. So I've sort of made a personal sort of study of how people react in meetings. And it has given me some of the best signposts that I could have possibly imagined.
Within yourself, why do you get such a buzz from it? Because clearly you find it, you get a real kick from it.
It's detective work. Sitting out
Uh-huh.
there are highly talented people. Where are they? And how quickly can you find them? And how quickly can you put them in positions so they can really act as a catalyst and an accelerant for a company turnaround? Because you don't have much time, as we talked about in the book. I mean, time is of the essence.
I get the impression you're certainly incredibly passionate about mentoring. I sense that you feel there should be more out there in the business community who should pass that baton on. Is this a call to arms?
I think absolutely, particularly when you're looking at 70 million Americans retiring, and they have incredible levels of knowledge, of help that they could provide, but they disappear off to the golf course or the doctor's office for the next ailment, and that is their retirement. It may be very comfortable, it may be in a warm climate, but I think there's still immense work that needs to be done. And I think that we have a resource, particularly in this country, that and in every country, that these people can teach, they can encourage, they can mentor. They have knowledge, they have experience, and I think we just we set a retirement age, and then we push them off the cliff. And we don't want them part of society. We don't want them as an active part of society. And you look at other cultures, the Asian culture, the older you get, the more respected you are. And I had a wonderful group in Japan that I was working with that wanted me to do quality sensei work in Japan. And they said that, you can come over, you can make a lot of money, you're very different, you confront us, but and then finally they asked, and I was in my early 70s, and they said, Mike's son, how old are you? And I said at that stage, I was 71. They said, we're going to have to wait a bit until you're in your 80s. Senseis are not really respected unless they're at least in their 80s. So if we could postpone this consulting assignment until you're a bit older, then that would work out better. So I have a career in my 80s. I'll be in a long robe as a sensei walking slowly through these factories. And so I have a whole new career for my 80s.
I have to say, Mike, I don't see any sense of you slowing down whatsoever. Absolutely fascinating. Of course, mentoring is just one of the 3 pillars that you talk about in The Art of the Turnaround, which coincidentally I saw on Amazon Prime today. There's your free plug for your sins. The other 2 pillars, of course, being the elimination of constraints and the pursuit of happiness, which we'll dive into next time. But for the time being, Mike, great to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you for listening to The Art of the Turnaround. If you love this podcast, please like and subscribe. You can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at The Art of the Turnaround. You can follow Mike Dunlop on LinkedIn or his website, theartoftheturnaround.com. This podcast was produced by Cadence 3 Studios. I'm your host and story editor, Alex Dunlop. April Bricker is our executive producer. Burke Tobenek is our producer and editor, additional editing by Eric Scheel. The show art was designed by Todd Arbuckle. Andrew Kindred is our sound engineer, and Eric Munch is our audio mixer. The Art of the Turnaround is based on the book by Mike Dunlop.